There's a moment right before you turn the key, when everything goes quiet. Not the silence of nothing happening, but the silence of something about to happen. And then you hear it. That first cough of the engine, almost reluctant, like it's deciding whether or not it wants to wake up today. The whole car shudders. You feel it in your wrists, in your chest, in the bottoms of your feet. There's a smell that fills the cabin, something between old leather and gasoline and time itself. Nothing is smooth. Nothing is optimized. Nothing is trying to be convenient. And somehow, that's exactly why it feels like home. If you've ever loved an old car, truly loved one, you already know that this has almost nothing to do with getting from one place to another. A modern car can do that faster, safer, quieter, and with a screen that tells you exactly how many minutes until you arrive. But you're not here for efficiency. You never were. What you're really looking for is something that most of the modern world has quietly stopped offering you. A soul, something real, something that pushes back when you push it, something that demands your full attention and rewards you with the kind of feeling no algorithm can generate. And the fascinating thing is, psychology can actually explain why. Let's start with something called golden age thinking. It's the deeply human tendency to believe that a better time existed somewhere in the past, often a time you never personally experienced. You might romanticize the 1960s, the open highways, the chrome bumpers, the idea of a simpler world, even though you were born decades later. This isn't a flaw in your thinking. It's your mind searching for meaning in a present that often feels too fast, too disposable, too forgettable. Old cars become vessels for that longing. When you sit behind that oversized steering wheel, you're not just driving, you're stepping into a story your imagination has been writing for years. It feels like time travel, not because the car takes you backward, but because your mind finally has permission to slow down. Then there's something quieter happening, something most people never notice. You give the car a personality. You talk to it. You say things like, "She's being stubborn today," or "She doesn't like the cold." Psychologists call this anthropomorphism, the projection of human traits onto non-human things. But here, it's more than a quirk. It's a form of emotional bonding. In a world full of disposable objects designed to be replaced every 2 years, you've chosen something that talks back. Something with moods. Something that can betray you on a Tuesday and forgive you by Thursday. That relationship, as irrational as it sounds, fills a space inside you that no subscription service ever could. Now, think about the last time you spent an entire weekend under the hood. Your knuckles were scraped. Your back ached. You probably said you'd never do it again. And yet the moment that engine turned over, the moment you solved the puzzle, something flooded through you that felt dangerously close to joy. Psychologists have a name for this too. It's called the IKEA Effect, the principle that we place disproportionately high value on things we've personally struggled to create or maintain. The difficulty is not the obstacle. The difficulty is the point. Every seized bolt, every corroded wire, every part you had to source from 3 countries away, those aren't inconveniences. They're deposits into something that becomes irreplaceably yours. And there's a physical layer to this that goes even deeper. Modern life has become disturbingly smooth. You tap glass to communicate. You press soft buttons that click with artificial feedback. Everything is mediated, filtered, buffered. An old car refuses all of that. The steering has weight. The throttle responds to the exact pressure of your ankle. The brakes require commitment. Every input has a consequence you can feel immediately and completely. This is sensory grounding, and it's one of the most effective antidotes to the low-grade dissociation that modern technology quietly imposes on us. Behind the wheel of a classic car, you're not scrolling through life. You're living it, mile by rattling mile. There's also something here about identity that's worth sitting with. In a world that increasingly asks you to conform, to drive the same crossover in the same shade of gray, an old car becomes an extension of who you are. Psychologists call this the self-object, an external thing that carries part of your inner identity. Your car isn't just a car. It's a statement that you value craft over convenience, character over conformity, permanence over trend. When someone sees that car in a parking lot, They're not just seeing metal and glass. They're seeing you, the version of you that refuses to disappear into the beige uniformity of modern consumer life. And perhaps the most quietly powerful thing happening is this. In a world that increasingly feels beyond your control, where headlines spin and systems fail, and the future feels uncertain, an old car gives you something radical, a problem you can actually solve, a machine you can actually understand. You can see every component, you can trace every wire. Nothing is hidden behind proprietary software or sealed units designed to lock you out. There's an illusion of control here, yes, but sometimes an illusion is exactly what keeps a person grounded. Sometimes the act of fixing something mechanical is the only honest way you know how to process the feeling that everything else is breaking. And maybe that's the part nobody talks about. Maybe, when you're underneath that car at midnight, hands covered in grease, working on something most people would have scrapped years ago, you're not just repairing an engine. You're repairing yourself. You're rebuilding your patience, your focus, your belief that broken things deserve a second chance. You're practicing a kind of devotion that the modern world has largely abandoned. You're saying, with your time and your bruised knuckles and your unreasonable stubbornness, that not everything should be thrown away when it stops being easy. That feeling you get when you finally pull out onto an empty road, windows down, engine singing its imperfect song, that feeling isn't just nostalgia, it's freedom. Not the commercialized, #version of freedom. Real freedom. The kind that comes from choosing something difficult and loving it anyway. The kind that comes from refusing to let convenience replace connection. The kind that comes from holding on to something the rest of the world has moved past. Not because you're stuck, but because you understand its value in a way that most people have forgotten how to. This is not just a hobby. It never was. It's a philosophy disguised as a pastime. It's therapy wrapped in rust and gasoline. It's a quiet rebellion against a world that wants everything fast, smooth, and forgettable. So if you're someone who loves these machines, if you've ever felt slightly crazy for pouring money and time into something that will never be practical, let me tell you clearly, you are not crazy. You are awake. You are holding on to something that matters. And the world needs more people like you, people who preserve, who restore, who refuse to let beautiful things disappear simply because they're old. Keep turning that key. Keep chasing that sound. Keep grease under your fingernails and stories under your hood. And if this felt like someone was finally putting your obsession into words, consider subscribing. There's more to explore here, more psychology behind the things you love and the reasons you love them. I'll see you in the next one.
Mm-hmm.